With common sense for the Commonwealth, it's the John Fredericks Morning Show. Like us on Facebook. Follow John on the new Twitter handle @JF Radio Show. And online, the website, thejohnfredericksshow.com. Listen online anywhere, anytime at washingtontimes.com/listen. And make a note of the new call-in number, toll-free at 888-480-JOHN. That's 888-480-5646.
It's hard for me to imagine how they're going to reconcile this scheme as being the byproduct of any recent medical condition. Mr. Jackson engaged in this scheme starting in 2005. It's a 7-year scheme.
Through his illegal actions, he disrespected those who honorably hold roles in public office, and he disrespected the community that elected him. Our citizens deserve better and are entitled to a government free of dishonor and distrust.
In a little more than a month, the High Court will hear arguments on the constitutionality of the California law that forbids same-sex marriage. The Obama administration is contemplating filing a friend of the court brief, urging the court to overturn that ban. In his inaugural speech, the president said that gays and lesbians must be, quote, treated like anyone else under the law.
By corrupting insiders, by hiring hackers, and engaging in other unscrupulous and illegal activities, these entities can inflict devastating harm on individual creators, startups, as well as on major companies.
They can pass an extension of the sequester, a delay of the sequester, just like they did at the end of last year, so that Congress can get the work that it wants to get done.
The bottom line is furloughs would not actually start for DoD employees until late April. And we certainly hope, even if sequestration is triggered on 1 March, we certainly hope that in the interim, Congress will act to de-trigger sequestration.
My credibility as a diplomat working to help other countries create order is strongest when America at last puts its own fiscal house in order.
Now, with common sense for the Commonwealth, here's John Fredericks.
Welcome back to the John Fredericks Show, Common Sense for the Commonwealth. This is your host, John Fredericks. We're blasting through Virginia. This is the voice of reason. We are the adults in the room. Thanks for joining us today. Landmark day after 3 decades. The House, the Senate in Virginia, in Richmond, apparently about to put forth a comprehensive landmark transportation package to solve our ongoing 30-year dilemma.
And to that end, John, we've had some live guests on this morning in the 6 o'clock hour already. Former Virginia State Senator Jean Marie Davis joined us at the beginning of the show. From PilotOnline.com and the Virginian Pilot newspaper, Julian Walker, the State House correspondent there. We just finished talking to him at the 6:40 break. By the way, today we will be putting the entire program up on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. It is that important a listen. Coming up at 7:40, we will hear from the Commonwealth Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling. From the Virginia General Assembly itself, the Speaker of the House of Delegates, William Howell, and to put it all into perspective from ForAmerica.org's organization, David Bozell. But joining us now, John, is one of the Magnificent Seven, one of the candidates for the Virginia Lieutenant Governor GOP nomination, businessman, entrepreneur, Pete Snyder joins us now. Good morning, Pete, and John, take it away.
Pete, great to have you with us.
Morning, John. Morning, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You know, Pete, we were excited to have you on because you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of outside, you're coming at this from an outside angle. Immediately when this compromise came down the pike, you sent out a pretty solid press release decrying it, saying that it was the biggest tax increase in history. Look, Pete, the position that we have is you can't fund $2 billion annually from the general fund when we've got a divided government. And so, you know, we can all jump and down and do this conservative alpha male chest beating thing all day, but it doesn't address the problem at hand. Okay, so when you're all done with that, we need to fix transportation, Pete, or this economy is going to collapse.
John, you and I agree on a lot of things a lot of times, and we're going to disagree on this one. Number one, I believe that transportation should be a top priority for the Commonwealth. As a business owner as someone who lives in Northern Virginia and deals with the brunt of traffic, we certainly need a solution. But this is always framed as a revenue problem in Virginia. You know, we had a $1.4 billion surplus over the past 3 years in a row. Guess how much of that money went to transportation?
How much?
$50 million.
Well, where did it go?
That is not state government showing that transportation is a priority. That needs to be changed, John. Look, I've railed on your show, and we have ads on your show against Dick Sasslaw for saying that he's going to stand in the way of progress in transportation. I'm for progress on transportation, but I'm not for, unelected regional authorities. I mean, we tried this thing a decade ago. We had a handful of senators and delegates vote to have these regional authorities that are unelected. It's a coward's way of raising taxes. It's not the right way to do it. In this economy, especially when Virginia is looking at sequestration, it now is not the time for Republicans to be raising taxes on other Republicans. But, John, I think you know me pretty well. I'm not going to be one of these Dr. No candidates that doesn't have a serious and sober proposal of his own. So we're proposing two things. First and foremost, we need to change the business model of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We need next year's sweeping tax reform. We have dozens and dozens of taxes in the Commonwealth. We have even more, scores and scores of fees. And you and I both know, and your listeners know, that a fee is really a tax. It's just called a fee by a politician that doesn't want to say that he's raising taxes.
Right.
We need to modernize the whole thing. Most of these fees and taxes go back to 1943.
Right.
If we modernize and streamline the system, most studies show that we'll have a 7% increase in just overall collections. That's not raising a rate on anyone. And we can get a 7% increase in our business model. That would be huge. And then secondly, we need to reduce the size and scope of government. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We're aiming to cut 10% in state government. We don't think that that's audacious. Businesses and families do it all the time. We do that, we'll have $940 million a year to spend and prioritize on transportation. That's how you get things done in the private sector. That's the way state government needs to work, John.
All right, Pete, give me one example of one thing you would cut 10% that actually could get passed through the General Assembly.
Sure, I'd look at the overall HR issue of state government. That's where the bulk of our core fees and core expenses go to. I'd look at having a reduction in the workforce in state government by 10%. We can go through every single agency, and I have, and every single department, and find areas to cut. That's one area. We can look at redundancies in our agencies. I've had lengthy discussions. I'm a technologist. I don't think that we need a Secretary of Technology. That could be rolled into the Department of Commerce very easily. I mean, to do our IT contracts, it's not that hard. That's not going to be huge savings right there, John. But if you multiply that times 100 or 150 in finding smart, common sense ways to run your business and run the business of state government, we get there really quickly.
Well, one of the issues with that, Pete, I mean, it sounds great, but there are 20 Democratic senators in the State House. They're not going to approve that. They're not going to take $2 billion out of the general fund. They're not going to want to go with these reductions that you talked about. They're going to be up there screaming, saying that you're starving the children. Meantime, we're not going to be able to get back and forth to work. You know that's going to happen. So I don't think it's reality.
You tell me this. Most of these quote-unquote negotiations have gone on in back rooms outside of the public. How many ads have been run on your show about getting this deal done? How much pressure from outside forces, how many phone calls, how many emails, how many faxes have been done on this issue to address if transportation truly is our number one issue in Virginia? Virtually nothing.
Zero.
There is no outside political pressure on this. And trust me, if we want to cut the size and scope of government, you not only do classic backroom arm twisting in Richmond that may or may not have results, you mobilize the people. And we'll do that through our message. We'll do that through technology. We will do that through a strong and massive political force.
Pete?
That's how you create real change, John.
Pete, one of the things that we highlighted this morning was the fact that a lieutenant governor may not be the tie-breaking vote in the state Senate on budget or revenue issues. One of the things that many people in the state may not be aware of. Beyond advocacy, what else could you do as lieutenant governor to perhaps have pushed this type of bill through with your modifications in mind?
Well, I think first and foremost, you're part of the conversation in the beginning. And when ridiculous ideas like unelected regional authorities that can unilaterally raise taxes come up, you do everything in your power to kill bad ideas in the crib, Steve. So that's you need to be a part of the conversation at the beginning. You also need to be able to make proposals, again, like reducing the size and scope of government by 10% in a detailed and sober way early. So that's where the conversation goes. And that's what leadership's all about.
All right.
Setting priorities and dictating the terms of debate.
All right, Pete, we're up against a break. We want to make sure that we get in a particular piece of information that broke from your campaign. You have a brand new election application for use by a smartphone and Android and iPhone users. Can you tell us about that quickly, sir?
Sure thing, Steve. We actually listen to you guys, and while I'm a huge fan of the convention tradition in Virginia, I know John's been railing against it. He can't figure out how to register and to file to be a delegate in Chesapeake. And as we've been traveling the Commonwealth, we've encountered folks who are just confused on the convention process. They want to be a part of it, but are confused. So we've created an application, an app, IN 2013, that we are opening to the entire Commonwealth. Anyone who wants to use it and wants to plug in where they live, figure out how to file with all of the 134 counties and localities in Virginia. They can instantly download the filing form they need and be a part of the process. This is a transparent party-building process. We want to make sure that as many Virginians as possible can be a part of the growth of the Republican Party and be there with us and perhaps others on May 18th. It is an important part of democracy in action. And look, I'm a technologist. You guys were complaining about a problem. We heard a bunch of people complaining that this process isn't transparent and they want more information and figuring out how they can be at the convention on May 18th. And we're going to make it easy through technology for everyone.
Well, Pete, to that end, can you develop an app that would help John learn how to use the office coffee maker? Because that's really the biggest hurdle he's got to get through every morning. John?
He didn't buy, with your improved ratings, he didn't get you an espresso or something like that, Steve?
Well, we actually have a Keurig, but even that's too complicated.
I can't figure that thing out. I'm still trying to get it to work through the hot plate. But look, I did just somebody sent me the app you have, and I got to say, it's a fabulous piece of technology. I've been trying to figure this thing out, Pete, since December, and I was excited because it came up. I could just plug in my name, plug my address in. I got all kinds of info. It set me in the right direction. So I would encourage your campaign to release that to anybody, regardless of what they're going to back, what candidate they have. Let's get people there. It's a fabulous app, Pete. Thank you.
John, absolutely. Hey, I'm glad it was Frederick-ified, that it's that simple that even you can figure it out. And you know what, John? Imagine if we applied that problem-solving ability and innovation to our transportation problems. We wouldn't be talking about Republicans hiking taxes on other Republicans, pal.
Exactly.
So let's harness the power here.
And the traffic problem I have now, Pete, is that I'm up against a network break. Otherwise, I'd have to traffic the spots into the next hour. But, Pete, we appreciate it as always. PeteSnyder.com, the application, the information, all there. We appreciate your insight on the transportation issue. Coming up now on 7:25, Common Sense Time on the John Frederick Show. Back in a short 90 seconds.
When news breaks in Washington, it breaks fast, faster than most media can keep up with. But right in step with WashingtonTimes.com. From Capitol Hill to the White House to the Pentagon and all around the world, you'll get up-to-the-moment news, opinion, and conservative commentary from the journalists at the Washington Times. Set your homepage on WashingtonTimes.com. The Washington Times. Fearless reporting, American values.
Your morning fix includes a cup of coffee, but it's still missing something. RedState.com's Morning Briefing, a must-read for policymakers and those in the grassroots of the conservative movement. Eric Erickson, the editor of RedState.com, the #1 conservative to follow on Twitter, according to both Politics Daily and Politico. Publishing at 4:45 every morning, not only reporting the news, but breaking news. Sign up for free now. Go to RedState.com/Morning Briefing.
Hi, I'm Mike Watson, president of CatLab, Accredited Calibration Laboratories. If your job is to ensure the integrity of instrumentation in your facility, you know the importance of a reliable calibration lab. Your company is serious about quality and compliance and relies on your expertise for both. So when it comes to the accuracy of your test equipment, you can rely on us. CatLab is accredited, prompt, and local, and since 1989 has partnered with manufacturers around the globe. Built by technicians for technicians. Visit CatLab at catlab.net.
Common Sense News Time, 7:26, right on the button here on the John Frederick Show. Coming up for us in the next segment will be the Lieutenant Governor of the Great Commonwealth of Virginia, Bill Bolling. Then at 8:10, from the Virginia General Assembly, getting its business done before the end of the week, Speaker of the House of Delegates, William Howell. And to put it all in perspective from foramerica.org, David Bozell. John, hit it out of the park, baby.
Well, I tell you what, the conservatives are going nuts over this bill. I'm a conservative. I don't like taxes. I don't want to pay any more taxes. I think we're taxed enough already. But look, you got to face reality. We have got to get a comprehensive transportation package passed in this state. This has gone on for 3 decades. We can't get there. Governor McDonnell put a bold idea forward. Now it's gaining traction. We've got to compromise. Yeah, are there pieces of this bill I don't like? Absolutely. There should be a referendum piece for the regional transportation component. That should be up to the voters, not some nameless, faceless authority. No question there. Should there be a lockbox to be sure that that cash goes to transportation? Undoubtedly, that's got to be put in there. And there's going to be some other issues. But at the end of the day, it's going to be, if this goes down, it's going to be the alpha male, chest-beating right-wingers that just are opposed to any tax at any time for any reason, that are defying reality. Look, if we were in Georgia right now, this would be fine. You got a conservative governor. You got a conservative lieutenant governor. You got supermajority conservatives in the House and the Senate. We don't have that. We have a divided government. We can't get from point A to point B. You can't go anywhere in this state. And at the end of the day, this isn't about cars or gas taxes or anything else. I don't care how you fix this thing. The end of the day, you are going to repel businesses. Jobs will dry up. Companies aren't going to come in. They're going to go away. Tax base is going to shrink down, and the state is going to be facing economic calamity. If you're concerned about the 200,000 jobs that we're going to lose in Virginia because of sequestration, you haven't seen a thing. If we can't get comprehensive transportation package passed, and it's going to take a tax increase, otherwise you'll never get it done. This is the John Frederick Show.
Coming up on 1:30 here on the John Frederick Show, our window on the weather is brought to you by the good folks at Renewal by Andersen Windows. And we thank you for supporting our advertisers here on the John Frederick Show. You can save $1,000 on Renewal by Andersen replacement windows. Call them today. 800-779-4700. A very chilly day around the Commonwealth. 27 degrees with highs reaching the mid-40s midday in Virginia Beach at WHKT. 26 degrees right now with highs only in the mid-40s for Richmond and Central Virginia at WLEE. 28 degrees right now with highs only in the upper 40s midday in Lynchburg at Roanoke at WBRG. And 26 degrees, highs in the upper 30s here in the nation's capital at WTNT. On the way, the Lieutenant Governor of the Great Commonwealth of Virginia, Bill Bolling. Now, Common Sense Time coming up on 7:30. Once again, with Commonwealth headlines, here's our own Ken Johnson. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, John and Steve. Good morning, everybody. One of the largest military contractors in the Commonwealth, BAE Systems Ship Repair, has sent letters to employees in Norfolk and 4 other states saying that they may have to lay off more than 3,500 people if the Navy cuts $4.6 billion in ship repairs this year. As many as 1,600 workers in Norfolk alone can be laid off. Any decision on whether to formally notify workers that they are being discharged will hinge on whether the Navy follows through with plans to cancel almost $500 million in ship repairs from April to September because of the budget shortfall. Pentagon officials say they are reviewing an Esquire magazine article on a Navy SEAL's account of his role in the May 2011 raid that killed Osama bin Laden to determine whether the account discloses any classified information. The identity of the SEAL is not revealed in the Esquire article, but the team involved in the raid is based in Virginia Beach. As for information leaked, it may be too late since the article was published online February the 11th. The account is not the first to portray details of the raid. Former SEAL Matt Bissonette, writing under the pseudonym Mark Owen, described the operation in his book, No Easy Day, published last September. While the Pentagon objected to what it called his unwarranted disclosures, no legal action has been taken against him. After a great deal of political wrangling and debate over numerous proposals, a deal to generate an additional $880 million for state road building efforts was sealed between the two small groups of legislators who have been negotiating the plan over the past 4 days. Compromise legislation converts Virginia's 17.5 cents per gallon motor fuels tax to wholesale taxes on gas and diesel, increases to 5.3% the state sales tax, imposes higher registration fees on alternative fuel vehicles, and raises the titling tax on automobile sales. The package also includes regional funding components for Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia to be paid for with additional wholesale gas and sales tax hikes in those regions. There's also a $100 fee on alternative fuel vehicles such as hybrids and a rate increase on the titling tax on car sales. When Virginians go to the polls to cast their votes after July 1st, 2014, they will have to present a photo identification card, such as a driver's license or student ID card issued by a university, under a bill that passed the General Assembly yesterday. If someone does not have a photo ID, the measure requires the local registrar's office to provide one. The bill, passed the House largely along party lines, still requires approval from Governor Bob McDonnell. Legislation pushed by Governor McDonnell to allow the state to take over chronically failing schools has received final General Assembly approval. The Senate previously passed the measure on a tie-breaking vote by Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling. It now goes to McDonnell for his signature. Louisiana's Recovery School District served as the model for the proposal to create an opportunity education institution to take control of failing schools and try to turn them around. 6 schools currently meet the criteria for state takeover, most of them in Norfolk. In Louisiana, 77% of students in New Orleans were attending failing schools in 2005. That's been reduced to 29% now. The House has voted to repeal the 1950 Virginia law making it illegal for unmarried couples to live together. While the law calls for a $500 fine for a first offense up to a year in jail for subsequent infractions, unmarried couples living together have rarely been prosecuted in recent years. Besides, the U.S. Supreme Court has deemed the law unconstitutional. The bill will now go to Governor McDonnell, who has said he supports the repeal. State and local news brought to you by the Chris Weaver Real Estate Team, your Virginia real estate leader. Whether you're buying, selling, or leasing, get it done by the team that gets it done right. ChrisWeaver.com. KRISWeaver.com.
WTNT Traffic and Weather brought to you by Washington's Best Tennis Boot Camp. Find it at rjtennis.com. That's rjtennis.com.
Traffic brought to you by Dimetap. Accident southbound on 270, just south of Shady Grove Road. 2 left lanes are blocked. 2 lanes will get you by to the right. Expect delays from Father Hurley Boulevard most of the way down into Gaithersburg this morning. On the outer loop of the Beltway, delays west of I-95 over towards Georgia Avenue. Virginia, 95 slow going Dale City up into Newington. Earlier accident in Springfield is gone. 395 now starting to fill up from Duke Street to Seminary Road and from the Pentagon to the 14th Street Bridge. Accident cleanup remains northbound on 210 at the exit ramp for 495. This cold and flu season, choose Dimetap to help your kids feel better. Fast, effective relief of cold, cough, and flu symptoms. Dimetap has formulas you can trust, including Dimetap Cold and Cough and Dimetap Multi-Symptom Cold and Flu, each with a great grape taste. Breathe easier with Dimetap. I'm Robert Workman with WTNT Traffic.
Courage. It's what separates those with experience, convictions, and fresh ideas from lifelong politicians who say one thing and do another. My name is Jean Marie Davis, and I am a candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Both in the House of Delegates and the state Senate, I defeated the Democrats in a heavily liberal-leaning district in Fairfax County by taking bold, courageous positions and solving intricate legislative problems, all while maintaining a 100% pro-life and pro-business voting record. A member of Governor McDonald's cabinet, I directed his Washington office where I worked to make sure that directives from Washington never infringed upon Virginia's states' rights. I am the most electable conservative candidate for lieutenant governor and will add strength and diversity to the ticket with Ken Cuccinelli and would truly appreciate your support. Please go to my webpage at JeanMarie4LG.com. That's JeanMarie, the number 4LG.com for more information and to sign up to be a convention delegate. I'm Jean Marie Davis, a candidate for Lieutenant Governor, and my campaign paid for this ad.
Are you a service member looking to purchase or refinance a home? Well, you're in luck. With today's low interest rates, it's a great time to get a VA home loan with no down payments, no private mortgage insurance, and competitive interest rates. You can't get a better deal than with Veteran Loan Funding. Just like you fight for our country, Veteran Loan Funding will fight to get you the very best home loan. Their dedicated specialists are ready to serve those of you who served all of us. Locally owned and operated, the number one goal at Veteran Loan Funding is to make the mortgage process go as smoothly and quickly as possible. Visit www.veteranloanfunding.com or call 1-800-601-3878. Just remember, at Veteran Loan Funding, they believe that because you helped guarantee our freedom, they guarantee to help you purchase or refinance the home of your dreams. Don't let this great opportunity pass you by. Visit www.veteranloanfunding.com or call 1-800-601-3878. That's 1-800-601-3878.
Your morning fix includes a cup of coffee, but it's still missing something. RedState.com's Morning Briefing, a must-read for policymakers and those in the grassroots of the conservative movement. Eric Erickson, the editor of RedState.com, the number one conservative to follow on Twitter according to both Politics Daily and Politico. Publishing at 4:45 every morning, not only reporting the news, but breaking news. Sign up for free now. Go to RedState.com/Morning Briefing.
Join the Prince William Chamber Friday, March 8th for Government Contracting Industry Day. Mission Possible. Learn more today at www.govconday.com. This conference will help you diversify and thrive in an uncertain economy. With keynotes by Sean Crean, Director of Navy Small Business Programs, and noted economist Dr. Stephen Fuller. See the agenda and register online today at www.govconday.com.
I own a replacement window company, and I'm saying don't replace all your windows right now. I'm Kevin Shakin, one of the local owners of Renewal by Andersen. In this weather, customers are replacing only their very worst windows. So how do you determine your draftiest windows? Renewal by Andersen conducts an in-home thermal draft detector test, and with our infrared technology, we pinpoint your most energy-wasting windows. The test is free, and when you replace your 5 worst windows, you save $1,000. With 0 money down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for 1 year. Get a free thermal draft detector test and save $1,000. For a free Renewal by Andersen brochure or DVD, call 1-800-779-4700. 1-800-779-4700. 1-800-779-4700. That's 1-800-779-4700.
Offer not available in all areas.
With common sense for the Commonwealth, it's the John Fredericks Morning Show. Like us on Facebook. Follow John on the new Twitter handle @JF Radio Show. And online, the website, thejohnfredericksshow.com. Listen online anywhere, anytime at washingtontimes.com/listen. And make a note of the new call-in number, toll-free at 888-480-JOHN. That's 888-480-5646. Now, with common sense for the Commonwealth, here's John Fredericks.
Great to have you back with us today, Thursday, February 21st, 2013. Common Sense News Time coming up on 7:39. This is the John Fredericks Show. Common Sense For the Commonwealth of Virginia's only statewide radio network, we're broadcasting from the nation's capital and blasting our way through Virginia. We are the voice of Virginia, the adults in the room. Joining us now, Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Republican Bill Bolling. And today, Lieutenant Governor, we were excited to have you on a potentially landmark compromise coming out of the House and the Senate. For the first time since 1986, Virginia could see a major overhaul in transportation as negotiators in the House of Delegates and the state Senate reached a tentative compromise Wednesday very quickly. It could raise $860 million annually towards transportation, $3.5 billion over a 5-year period, calls for a 0.03 increase in the sales tax, a gasoline wholesale tax in lieu of the 17.5-cent tax, and an alternative $100 fuel tax and some other things. But tremendous progress made. Lieutenant Governor, can this pass and be signed into law?
Well, I hope so, John. You know, when we were talking about this on Monday, we were talking about the fact that we hope the transportation conferees would be able to come up with a compromise, and this is a compromise. We talked about the fact that everybody was going to have to give. Some Republicans were going to have to give on new revenue for transportation, and Democrats were going to have to give on a greater use of existing general fund revenue for transportation. You see all of that in this package. It's a very complex package. I will tell you, no deal is a perfect deal. This is not a perfect deal. If I could have devised it, there would have been ways that I would have devised it differently. But it is a compromise, and it was doing exactly what I talked about on Monday that they were going to need to do, figuring out how they could arrange the pieces of the puzzle in such a way that we could generate as close to $1 billion a year in new funding for transportation as possible, still be able to get an agreement among the conference committee, and then hopefully get 21 votes in the Senate and 51 votes in the House of Delegates. Based upon what we've heard from our discussions with legislators over the last 24 hours, I feel pretty confident about the ability of this package to pass the state Senate. And we got to keep doing some work in the House of Delegates. There are going to be a lot of Republicans in the House of Delegates who don't like the fact that this package does include some higher taxes and fees. But it's the only way we're going to be able to get a deal done. It's a compromise. It's pragmatic politics. It's problem solving, and that means sometimes that you got to give a little to get a little. So, I'm hopeful with the leadership of the transportation conferees and the Speaker, and the Governor and I are going to be talking with members of the House of Delegates in the next couple of days. I'm hoping we can get the votes over there as well to get this package passed, and if we do, it's going to help us once and for all, after at least 12 years of trying, to be able to put in place a plan that will enable us to move forward with our efforts to build a transportation system for the 21st century. And it will be, without question, I think, the major accomplishment of the McDonnell administration. And it'll be the most significant legislative accomplishment in Virginia, I think, in probably 25 years.
Lieutenant Governor, do you believe that this would not have happened without Governor McDonnell putting out there basically a very, very bold transportation plan when he opened the General Assembly? We had Julian Walker on earlier from the Pilot. He summed it up. He said that, Bob McDonnell swung for the fences. Is there any way this would have happened had the governor not stepped up with his own plan?
I don't think so. I think there were a couple of things along the way that helped make this agreement possible. First of all, the governor deserves a lot of credit for putting the transportation issue on the front burner during the last year of his administration, and he deserves a lot of credit for putting a detailed, specific transportation plan on the table that kind of put a marker in the ground that people then had to respond to and figure out, well, if you don't like this, what do you like? And then that led to being able to get a number of different proposals out there and facilitate some discussion. And then the second thing that frankly I think was significant is that there were some other people, and to borrow your byline, the grown-ups in the room, the adults in the room, who spoke up and said, we've got to compromise on this thing. We can't draw lines in the sand. We can't take positions from which we can't retreat. We got a problem here that we need to solve. We're going to have to be pragmatic to get it solved, and we're going to have to be willing to compromise. And I came out early on and encouraged the members of the legislature to look at this with an open mind and be willing to compromise. Others followed in that process. And finally, I think there was just a growing recognition of the fact that we need to get this done. It's going to require compromise to get it done. And this may not just be our best chance, but our last chance to get it done. And then it started picking up steam. And, that's what leadership's about. You have to step out on a limb sometimes and encourage people to go outside their comfort zone. And I think there were a lot of people in this process that did that, and it's put us now on the cusp of being able to accomplish something very significant for Virginia. And we still have a couple of days of work to do to make sure we get this bill passed.
Right now, Lieutenant Governor, with where this is, do you feel somewhat politically vindicated?
Well, this is what I had hoped for. I had hoped for the adults in the room to set the ideologies aside, to set the partisanship aside, and to just say, we got a problem. Let's figure out how to solve it. And at the end of the day, that's what the transportation conferees were able to do. I'm very proud of their work. Again, it's not a perfect plan. Nobody's going to look at this plan and like everything in it. That's the essence of a compromise. But I think they showed what we're capable of accomplishing. And, this is the type of mainstream leadership, John, that I've been talking about for a very, very long time. Leadership that moves us apart from the ideology and the partisanship. Leadership that calls us to a higher purpose. Leadership that actually focuses on solving problems, getting things done, and creating an environment in which people can have a higher and better quality of life. That's what government should be focused on. So, I wouldn't use the word vindicated, but I would say pleased. I'm very pleased that we've been able to show some real leadership on this issue. And going forward, I think it's just an example of what we can do. Not everything has to be a fight. Not everything has to be an impasse. Reasonable people can sit down around a table, solve problems, and get things done. If we can solve this problem after years of trying without progress, there's not a single problem facing this state today that we're not fully capable of solving. But it takes mainstream leadership, it takes adult leadership to get it done, and I think this is a good example of what can happen when people work hard, they work together, they're willing to compromise, and they don't worry about who gets the credit. I think this is an example of what can happen. My hope is it'll be the first of many such examples to come.
Now, Lieutenant Governor, just for those just joining us, Common Sense News Time coming up on 7:48. This is the John Frederick Show. We're with the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Bill Bolling. Lieutenant Governor, there are many conservatives that, two of which were on our show today, and I'm getting texts and emails that's blowing up my computer, basically saying, this is the biggest tax increase in history, and how can conservatives do this? My question is, one of the tenets of conservatism is that you stand up to problems and you fund them, you pay for them. Why is this compromise, which is basically addressing the problem we have, calling for the dollars to find the funding to pay for it, why are conservatives decrying this?
Well, John, I think there's the fundamental failure on the part of many people is to understand that we have a divided government in our country. We have a divided government in Virginia. In a divided government, no one gets everything the way they want it all the time. You have to be willing to compromise. And, unfortunately in politics today, things have become, for many people, so ideologically rigid and so ideologically driven that compromise is a four-letter word. It is a sign of weakness. It is not. Compromise is the essence of a representative democracy. We as conservatives like to point to Ronald Reagan as kind of a patriarch of the conservative movement in America. The hallmark of Reagan's presidency was his ability to sit down with people like Tip O'Neill and work out deals, compromises to get things done. Sometimes you have to do that. And, I understand that there are a lot of folks who just always take the position, we're never going to support any package that has anything resembling the T word in it. That is not the real world. Those people would never have been able to solve this problem. Now, in a perfect world, where everybody did everything our way, we could have solved this problem with existing revenue. And I've said that for years. But it's not a perfect world. We're not solely in charge of state government. You've got a House of Delegates who did not want to raise taxes and fees. They wanted to use existing revenue. You've got a state Senate, Democrats, and at least half the Senate Republican caucus who did not want to use existing revenue. They wanted higher taxes and fees. So, you don't have to be the sharpest political scientist in the country to figure out, to get a bill through the Senate and the House, you've got to be willing to compromise. And does this package include some higher taxes and fees? It does. Does it also include a greater use of general fund revenue? It does. It is the essence of a compromise. It's not perfect. Trust me, there are things in the bill I don't like. There are things that I would have done differently. But, the world in which I live is the real world. And in the real world, you have to be willing sometimes to give a little, to get a little, to put the pieces of the puzzle together in such a way that you can get 21 votes in the Senate and 51 votes in the House. And all I can say to a lot of my conservative friends who just say, well, we should never have a package that involves higher taxes and fees, then what that means by default is we will never solve the transportation problem in Virginia. And that is unacceptable to us. The time's come to get this problem solved, required adult leadership to do it. That means a willingness to compromise. I know not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody on the right's going to like it. Not everybody on the left is going to like it. But at the end of the day, it's going to enable us to get the votes we need to pass a bill, to solve a problem, to make Virginia a better place.
Lieutenant Governor, I got only about a half a minute. We got to get out. We appreciate you coming on. But I just want you to put one rumor to bed. We had someone on our show that we have on frequently, Sean Kenny, the political editor for Bearing Drift, and he suggested that you were evaluating the potential of switching parties, becoming a Democrat, and entering the Democrat primary against Terry McAuliffe. That sounded a little bizarre to me, but he did put it out there, so let me just ask you straight out.
Yeah, let me tell you, there's no way I would ever join the Democratic Party. I don't know where some of this stuff comes from. I'm a frustrated Republican right now. There's no question about that. I'm concerned about the direction of our party, and I've spoken very candidly to that. But no, I can assure you that I have no interest, desire, or intent to become a Democrat.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, that puts a lot of minds at ease, not only for the Democrats, but for the Whig and the Bull Moose Party as well. So thank you for the time. We appreciate it. Virginia Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling, as always, your insight is much appreciated. Coming up now on 7:54 here on the John Frederick Show, back in a short 2 minutes.
The career politicians in Richmond, they don't know Pete Snyder, because Pete is not one of them. So it annoys Democratic Party boss Dick Saslaw when Pete Snyder takes him on. Listen.
State Senator Dick Saslaw, live from Richmond.
Who is Pete Snyder? Candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia on the GOP side.
Oh, never heard of him. How's that again?
Never heard of him.
Right. The Richmond political insiders haven't heard of Pete Snyder. Until now. Snyder is an outsider, a job creator who helped launch an entire industry right here in Virginia. Playing insider games? Nope. Pete Snyder's been too busy creating jobs and fighting for conservative solutions here in Virginia. Now Snyder is taking the fight to the career politicians. Pete's ready to shake up Richmond and fight for real conservative reforms. Pete Snyder for Lieutenant Governor. Conservative, job creator. outsider.
Paid for and authorized by Pete Snyder for Lieutenant Governor.
Your morning fix includes a cup of coffee, but it's still missing something. RedState.com's Morning Briefing, a must-read for policymakers and those in the grassroots of the conservative movement. Eric Erickson, the editor of RedState.com, the #1 conservative to follow on Twitter, according to both Politics Daily and Politico. Publishing at 4:45 every morning, not only reporting the news, but breaking news. Sign up for free now. Go to RedState.com/Morning Briefing.
When news breaks in Washington, it breaks fast, faster than most media can keep up with. But right in step with WashingtonTimes.com. From Capitol Hill to the White House to the Pentagon and all around the world, you'll get up-to-the-moment news, opinion, and conservative commentary from the journalists at the Washington Times. Set your homepage on WashingtonTimes.com. The Washington Times. Fearless reporting, American values.
The John Frederick Show at 7:56. John, we have a caller that has a very interesting question. He happens to be stuck in traffic, by the way, on 64 down in Hampton. Brian, go ahead. You're on with John Fredericks on the John Frederick Show. What was your question?
Good morning. So you guys mentioned a while back that the gas tax in the state of Virginia has been the same since 1985.
Yes.
And my question is how come it was never brought up in all this debate for revenue for Hampton Roads or the state of Virginia about like a 3 to 5 year plan of raising the gas tax to be in line with the states around us, and how much revenue would that have raised? Would that have solved the problem without the other stuff?
Well, Brian, that's a great question. Look, here's the problem. Every time raising the gas tax came up, and I'm a conservative and I'm a Republican. I got to tell you, every time it came up, Republicans and conservatives would go absolutely crazy over it and shut it down. I give you a perfect example. You're from the Hampton Roads area. You got a state senator down there. He's a Democrat, John Miller, from the 1st District. He ran for re-election to the Senate last term. He got challenged by a councilman in Williamsburg, Mickey Chohan. Miller had raised the question of looking at raising the gas tax, saying that just what you had said. He also said, Miller did, that there's no difference in the cost of gasoline between North Carolina, that has a 35-cent tax, and us that has 17.5 cents when you go over the bridge, because the oil companies had to adjust it to meet market demand. Miller, as an incumbent, almost got beat by Mickey Chohan over that one issue just because he brought it up. So the political reality is Republicans and conservatives go out of their minds when the gasoline tax or any tax is brought up. So that's why we're at a standstill. We can't get anything done. Now the same thing is happening. Look, I'm a Republican and I'm a conservative, but you're sitting there, Brian, caught in traffic again because we can't fix the problem with some of these other ideas. We've got to raise over $1 billion. It's not going to fall off a tree. We have a divided government. You hit the nail right on the head.
Brian,
this is the John Frederick Show.
Brian, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. We have done some addition to this morning's already very important program. We have added Virginia State Senator Ralph Northam, the Democrat from the 6th District, to the show coming up at 8:40 a.m. Of course, you just heard from the Lieutenant Governor Bill Bolling, and still to come at 8:10, House of Delegates Speaker William Howell. It's all right here on the John Frederick Show. We're at Common Sense News Time, coming up on 7:59. Glad you're with us. Got ahead of ourselves there.